Next on Done in a Weekend Projects, expert advice on container gardening in your backyard.
For a whole host of reasons, containers, whether bought or recycled, are a great place to plant your herb and vegetable gardens. In today's Done in a Weekend project, I'm going to discuss why containers are such a viable and popular cultivating option these days, as well as provide you some pointers as to how to properly plant and care for them. If you're interested in growing food to eat and enjoy with family and friends, but are nervous or uncertain about where to begin, herb and vegetable container gardens are definitely worth considering. In addition to being a great solution for constrained or limited sun-exposed spaces, they also allow you to start small and learn the basics before progressing on. Let's first take a look at some basic considerations for virtually any container garden. First, the container itself, the soil, location, essentially where you're going to put your container, water and fertilizer needs, and then finally, proper harvesting practices. Well-drained, not dry or overly wet soil is critical to herb and vegetable growth. So using bottom-draining pots with a peat-based potting soil specifically formulated for herbs and veggies will facilitate proper soil drainage and moisture retention. Don't use heavy or regular garden soils, since both will tend to compact in the pot's confines. Container size depends on which herb or vegetable you'll be growing. Most small herbs do well in pots as small as 8 inches in diameter, while larger perennials, like rosemary and vegetables, may require a gallon pot or larger. One thing you need to always keep in mind with container gardens is soil dries out a lot more quickly in a container than it does in garden beds, and then when you place that container outside where the sun and wind will essentially bake it, it will dry out really fast. That being said, if you're used to watering your indoor containers every 2 or 3 days, or when the top inch of soil feels dry, you may need to water your outdoor containers every day and possibly twice a day if you're experiencing extremely hot weather. Making daily checks of your soil will ensure your plants are getting the water they need, and therefore nutrients they need. Most herbs and veggies need a good amount of sun every day to thrive and produce the harvest you're looking for, typically between 6 and 8 hours a day. So make sure you place your container garden in a place where they'll get the optimal amount of sunlight. But that's one of the great things about a container, right? They're often small and most of the time movable, so you can even follow the sun as exposure changes throughout the season. All that said, as with any plant, I recommend that you always refer to your specific herbs or veggies care tags to determine the prime container location. When it comes to fertilizer, again, you need to recognize that in a container your herbs and veggies aren't going to benefit from the nutrients that are naturally available to them in the soil if planted in the ground. They're depending on you. So make sure you start out with an organic rich potting soil, formulated for container gardens. That way your plants will start out strong. Then, going forward, because your herbs and veggies will use up the nutrients in the soil and some nutrients will leak or escape out of the container through watering, you'll want to fertilize your container gardens every 2 to 4 weeks, depending on what you're growing and your growing conditions. One of the best and easiest ways to keep your herbs and veggies well fed is to pour a nutrient-rich solution right into the soil. That way, the fertilizer will go straight up into the roots. There are many choices of soluble fertilizers, organic or non-organic, to choose from. Finally, harvesting herbs and vegetables will generally help increase yields and prevent them from outgrowing their containers. Before starting, make sure your plants are well watered so they yield the best flavor. A few hours after watering, or the next morning, grab some gloves, basket or bucket, and sharp clean clippers and snip away. Since most vegetables will be harvested when they're visibly ripe, we'll focus on the basics of herb harvesting. As a general rule, perennial herbs like oregano, sage, and thyme are the simplest to harvest. Cut approximately 1/3 to 1/2 of the plant's height at any time during the growing season. Basil and other annual herbs grown through their leaves need regular harvesting throughout the summer, so they don't go to seed and can focus on growing leaves. Edible herbs like dill, lavender, borage, and tarragon should be harvested just after their flowers open, since the heads will be firm and at maximum flavor. Beyond considerations for certain herb types, the general rules of thumb for harvesting them can really be counted on one hand. 1. Water before you start. 2. Make clean cuts. 3. Clean your herbs. 4. Dry them quickly. And finally 5. Store them away from light and moisture. That's really all there is to it. Now let's discuss some actual planting pointers. If you're looking to plant more than one herb or vegetable in your container, or you're just wanting to make things look a little more interesting, just like flower container gardening, you're going to want to start with your thriller plant. That's the focal point that sits towards the back or the center of your container. And then you want to think about your spiller plants, those plants that will eventually cascade over your container. And then finally your filler plants, as the name suggests, those plants that fill the middle of your container. If you take this approach, not only will you maximize your space and your ability to properly harvest, at the end of the day, you'll have a much more attractive container to look at. Herb and vegetable gardens can be planted in containers in varying sizes and materials, based on your personal taste and budget. From simple window boxes to larger, more expensive containers, there's something available for everyone. You can even recycle an old household item, like this old pail, and create a unique container garden that's sure to be a conversation starter the next time your friends and family pay you a backyard visit. Well, I hope this video has helped you better understand the ins and outs of container gardening and will potentially inspire you to create one for your own yard. As always, please check us out at xmark.com/backyard for more done in a weekend project ideas. Until next time, here's to enjoying the backyard life.